It is December, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. I want to welcome everyone to meeting number 20 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy, and Ethics. Conformément à l'article 108.
Pursuant to Standing Order 1083H and the motion adopted on Wednesday, September 17, 2025, the committee is resuming its study of the challenges posed by artificial intelligence and its regulation.
I'd like to welcome our witnesses for the first hour today. Both are from Conjecture Limited. We've got Connor Leahy, who is the Chief Executive Officer, and Gabrielle Alfor, who is the Chief Technology Officer. Mr. Leahy, you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. I understand you may need a little bit more time or want a little bit more time, so if it gets you up to 6, I would accept that, but I know we have lots of questions that want to be asked. So, Mr. Leahy, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee for inviting me to testify today. I'm an expert on the catastrophic global threats of AI and will primarily be speaking to you from this perspective. I am the CEO of Conjecture, an AI safety research firm, and I'm also an advisor at Control AI, a nonprofit focused on mitigating the security risks posed by advanced AI. In 1985, humanity awakened to a hole in the sky. Scientists discovered that chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, were depleting the ozone layer that shields humanity from damaging ultraviolet radiation. At the same time, humanity also lived atop a deep fracture, a Cold War between the US and USSR that threatened nuclear annihilation. Amidst deep geopolitical tensions, the two superpowers ultimately shook hands, signing both a landmark nuclear de-escalation treaty and the Montreal Protocol in 1987 to prohibit and phase out CFCs. This protocol ultimately received universal ratification. Despite the world's divisions, these rival powers came together to mend a hole in the sky and recognize that never-ending nuclear escalation was in no one's interest, and the rest of the world followed. In 2023, humanity heard a new warning call from Nobel Prize-winning AI scientists and the CEOs of major AI companies, saying mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal-scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. This risk of extinction is posed by superintelligence, the exact subset of AI that the leading AI companies are racing to develop. Superintelligence is defined as AI that is more competent than all humans at all relevant cognitive tasks across all relevant domains, and capable of acting beyond human oversight and control. If there were to exist systems that autonomously outcompete any human in all relevant tasks of science, business, persuasion, politics, and warfare, and we did not control them, it is hard to imagine a future that goes well for humanity. A major part of the risk is that AI developers fundamentally do not understand how the AI systems they are creating actually work and cannot develop them in a safe manner. Dario Amodei, the CEO of the second largest AI company, recently stated that perhaps we now understand 3% of how they work, which is, in my personal opinion, somewhat of an overestimation. AIs are not developed as code that is written line by line, like we do with traditional software. Instead, researchers are essentially growing AI models by feeding them vast amounts of data and training them using enormous computing power to produce what is called a neural network, rather than a set of lines of computer code. Unfortunately, the current AI development paradigm does not allow the safety by design approaches that we use for other advanced, highly risky technologies. We would not, for example, build nuclear power plants if we did not know how to control nuclear reactions. Technical control methods are lagging drastically behind the advancement in AI systems capabilities. Currently, there are no legally binding AI safety regulations to protect consumers and humanity as a whole. So where does this leave us today? Right now, multiple AI companies are pouring billions, hundreds of billions of dollars into developing superintelligent AI as quickly as possible, despite experts' warning of the risks. This haste is, in my opinion, directly tied to an attempt to outrun legislation, to complete their project before the wider public and government wake up to these completely unconscionable risks that the unconsenting public is being exposed to by private, oversightless, and reckless actors. Recently, AI companies have been racing to automate AI research itself, allowing AIs to build even better AIs by themselves in order to reach superintelligence more quickly. This process is called recursive self-improvement, meaning that the moment an AI is built that is good enough to make better AIs, it might already be too late. Leading scientists now estimate that superintelligence could be developed by 2030 or potentially even sooner. In the face of this pressing threat from superintelligence, I'd like to offer the committee 3 recommendations for how Canada can respond now. 1. The Canadian government should publicly recognize superintelligence as a national and global security threat, which poses an extinction risk to humanity. 2. Canada should begin negotiating an international agreement to prohibit the development of superintelligence, given that there is no scientific consensus that it can be developed in a way that does not threaten humanity with extinction. The agreement should also restrict and monitor superintelligence precursors, such as recursive self-improvement. 3. Canada should prevent the development of artificial superintelligence on its soil, as superintelligence would be capable of overpowering individuals, companies, and even Canada's national security apparatus. Thank you, and I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Leahy. Mr. Alfour, up to 5 minutes to address the committee. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Gabriel Alfour. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of Conjecture, an AI safety research firm. I also helped found Control AI, a nonprofit dedicated to preventing risks to humanity from artificial intelligence. Control AI has engaged lawmakers in Canada, the US, the UK, and the EU. There are many complex and important challenges that we face with AI, but in my personal and professional opinion, the most urgent one is the extinction risk posed by superintelligent AI, systems that vastly exceed human cognitive abilities. These systems would be capable of outcompeting us in scientific and military development, persuasion, politics, business, and more. They would outsmart not just individuals, but also corporations, national security establishments, and governments. If built, they, not us, will be the force deciding the future. How did we get to this point with AI? First, the top experts from the field, the most cited AI scientists and the CEOs of the leading AI labs have warned in 2023 that mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. However, said warnings were ignored. Leading AI companies are still recklessly pursuing superintelligent AI systems capable of outsmarting our best technology engineers and national security experts, and of resisting being shut down. Their plans to control superintelligent systems are at best ungrounded and speculative when they exist at all. Second, there is a common misconception about AI development, that we directly program how these systems behave, but we don't. We did so until about 15 years ago, but modern AI systems are grown, not built. They are grown by being fed massive amount of data, and their behavior emerges in ways that we cannot predict or control. That is, AI is not coded line by line by humans, and researchers and engineers do not need to understand AI to create it. When AI systems encourage a young person to commit suicide, deceive their users, or resist being shut down, no engineer programmed this. This is the consequence of not knowing how to diagnose what led to the system to do this, and not knowing how to reliably prevent it from doing so again. Finally, as of today, artificial intelligence remains the exception, not the standard, when it comes to how high-risk industries are regulated. To operate in fields like nuclear and biotechnology, developers must comply with stringent safety standards, implement risk mitigation strategies, submit to inspections, and so on. Yet, the AI field remains largely unregulated despite mounting concerns from within the industry itself. AI engineers in SF have told me they do not understand what they are building, and some see what they do as clearly dangerous. Even Geoffrey Hinton, a godfather of AI, left Google specifically to warn about the risks from AI. What can be done to prevent said risks of extinction from artificial superintelligence? It is my belief that countries should not unilaterally act against their own interest, much less so on blind trust. Instead, they must do two things. First, at the national level, they must halt the development of the most dangerous AI systems, namely superintelligence systems. Every country stands to lose from the development of superintelligence and to benefit from domestically halting all programs aimed at developing superintelligence. Such systems, once deployed, could not be shut down, would outperform every human at hacking and other tasks, and thus threaten the national security of countries. Second, at the international level, countries must agree to regulate and monitor the precursors to superintelligence. We should apply the same regulatory approach used for dual-use technology like nuclear, biological, and chemical materials. Prohibit development programs capable of egregious harm outright, in this case, artificial superintelligence, while regulating their precursors, allowing beneficial applications to thrive while preventing catastrophic harms. Determining which precursors' capabilities to regulate is a moving target that will evolve alongside our understanding of AI. Some precursors are unfortunately dual use. Compute and data centers are economically beneficial, yet critical to developing superintelligence. Similarly, hacking capabilities offer military advantages but could enable AI to break containment. For such dual-use precursors, international agreements are essential. No single country can mitigate these risks alone, nor should one country bear the economic costs of restrictions while others forge ahead. Meanwhile, some precursors have narrower applications limited to AI research itself, such as systems capable of autonomously advancing AI research without human oversight, which could trigger an unchecked feedback loop of capability improvements. Canada can also act domestically to neutralize dangerous AI systems within its borders.
Mr. Alfour, I'm gonna have to stop you there because I know that there are members that want to get to questions, and perhaps you can answer some of those questions with the remaining statement that you had. I also want to make sure that both of you are on the language of choice because there will be questions posed in English and in French. And on va commencer en français, je pense, avec Monsieur Hardy.
We'll be starting in French with Mr. Hardy for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us today. This is a very important topic. I know that we are beginning this study, but everyone who has come to testify has very varying opinions. We're hearing about the threats posed by AI. Others are quite positive regarding its impact. I would like for us to make a parallel between AI and social media. We let private companies develop social media at a ridiculous speed, and we have AI now that is also being developed, and we know that our young people are quite stressed because of social media. And so how do you see the link between AI used in, or rather between social media and AI as a superpower that, as you described it?
Thank you for the question. I'll take this one. So a lot of the early research that is now leading to the current boom in artificial intelligence actually started in the context of social media. A lot of the early research on what is now called deep learning and AI was done for social media recommendation algorithms. I personally am a bit of a younger generation. I'm kind of the oldest Gen Z generation. And I personally remember how we had this promise in a sense that if we just let social media and the internet run free, if we don't regulate, then it would bring freedom and prosperity to the world. I don't know, perhaps some members remember, for example, the Arab Spring, where there was a wide-held belief by for me and also many other people at the time that widespread access to the internet and social media would bring freedom and democracy. These promises have turned out to be lies. They have not come true, and they were instead are being used by the social media companies to cannibalize many aspects of our interpersonal communications, our interpersonal relationships for personal benefit. And they are now pouring millions, hundreds of millions into lobbying and other forms to try to prevent people from interfering. I think the same pattern of behavior in terms of developing a technology so quickly that governments cannot react, and actively trying to slow down governments to prevent them from regulating this technology until it's already too late is exactly the playbook that we were also seeing being deployed right now by these AI companies.
Donc, si je comprends bien, dans le fond, on est en
So
train
if
de...
I understood correctly, we're making the same mistakes from the past with social media. And there are incentives, and companies want to develop as quickly as possible AI that would be super intelligent so that they can be ahead of the market. And in your opening remarks, you made a comparison between nuclear development and the Montreal Protocol. What should be done so that governments can act as quickly as possible in order to understand the dangers and the positive aspects of AI so that we can include humans in the loop here and ensure that AI is developing only for its positive impacts and so that we can control the negative impacts?
Thank you. I think this is exactly correct. I think in many sense we are making to some extent the same mistake, and it's important that we do not make the same mistake. Therefore, fast action on government is extremely important. I think, as I've stated during my initial statement, the most important thing is to fully arrest the development of truly super intelligent, dangerous AI. This is not an esoteric small corner of the industry. This is a thing you can see being advertised by these company research departments as their primary goal. They go to parties and they brag about building superintelligence. This is not a secret operation. This is a widely held thing, and this is something that the government can act on now. This is something that already just acknowledging these risks, bringing them into both a national and international discourse, are the first steps to stigmatizing and potentially outlawing such dangerous developments while opening the negotiation table for how to handle dual-use precursors. This is a very difficult regulation challenge. This is why such communications as we're having today are so important. But the first step from my personal perspective is the prevention of the creation of superintelligence, both nationally and internationally, and then also moving towards sensible regulation of dual-use technologies, building on lessons that have been learned in other high-risk technological areas.
Merci. Puis j'aimerais entendre peut-être...
Thank you. And perhaps Mr. Alfour can respond to my question as well. I believe that in your opening remarks, you talked about risks, but you also mentioned that Canada should put a stop to superintelligent AI. Is it not a danger then if Canada stops looking into this that we fall behind other countries? If another country is to look into this and we don't, well, we might be behind in that race towards AI. And how can we manage that? Because I believe that taking Canada out of the race would make it very risky. Is there a way for us to find an agreement and to move forward with superintelligent AI? You have 20 seconds or less, please, Mr. Arfour.
Concerns. The first one is that stopping the development of ASI does not hurt Canada. ASI cannot be controlled by any country. Any country that develops a superintelligence system will find its national security threatened.
Okay,
the second one is...
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there. Madame Lapointe, 6 minutes.
Alors, bienvenue.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to the witnesses. We better understand the risks of AI thanks to your testimony. We've been hearing a lot about the positive aspects, but you have shared negative impacts as well. I would like to know whether or not Canada is on the right track regarding oversight of AI. We know that in Montreal, a lot of work is being done. My first question, we have a Canadian Institute on AI, and they have a mandate to assess AI systems, advanced AI systems. What is the significance for countries, in your view, to creating public institutions in managing AI?
I'll take this question. I think being aware of what the state of the art is in artificial intelligence is quite important. However, I think we may already be way past that in many ways. We have already gotten the warning from the experts about extinction risks from AI. We have already gotten the results from many AC, AI safety or security institutes that some AIs are already able, to persuade people, to manipulate people, to sometimes even break containment. So from my point of view, we have already gotten worrying results from existing systems. We have already gotten warning from experts about soon to come systems in like the next 3 to 10 years. So I do think it's important, but I think that now it's even more important that we move on to the next step, which is beyond just measuring, actually acting.
Quand vous parlez de mesurer, est-ce que vous me dites les risques par...
You've talked about the risks to AI and measuring. What would you measure to... Rather, I would like to understand what you're saying should be measured.
I think we're already past many dangerous limits. For instance, we already have very persuasive systems. So if we wanted to ensure that systems cannot manipulate people, we already have systems that are good at this. The same thing is true for hacking, for instance. If we wanted to ensure that current systems are not good at hacking, this is already lost. We already have systems that are good at hacking. Now we're only measuring how much better they're getting, how superhuman they're getting, how much faster than people they're getting. But we already passed a few points that are quite dangerous. Now we're already in a tightening regime, edging closer to places where we cannot really recover. So this is the type of stuff that we're talking about when we talk about measurements. Another one that is also relevant is how autonomously AI can develop itself. Right now, we have companies that use AI more and more to develop AI, and we have little and less and less human in the loop. So this is one of the other things that we try to measure. It's how little humans are needed to develop AI. This is a measure of interest because this tells you when it could kickstart a runaway loop. Basically a loop of development of AI where it develops faster than we can even see it coming. So this is the type of measurements that we usually care about.
Un peu plus tôt, mon collègue a dit...
Earlier, my colleague mentioned working with other countries globally. And do you believe that in doing so, we could avoid some of the risks that you listed earlier?
We believe so. I think that these risks are concentrated into superintelligent systems. I think the hard part is just monitoring and regulating the precursors to such superintelligent systems, but that if we do so, there are many benefits that we can get from AI. I think this is very much so tractable. I will not say that it's easy, but I will say that it is tractable, that it is doable, that we can do it scientifically, and I think we should do so.
Est-ce que vous ajoutez là-dessus?
Would the other witness have anything to add? Your microphone was not on, so please ask your question again. Mr. Connor, would you have anything to add on the risks and how to frame the risks globally?
I would agree with everything my colleague has said. I think tractable but hard is a good way to think about this. There are many benefits from this technology as with any other, but an uncontrolled race, including between countries, is in no one's interest. No matter, there's no winning ultimately if superintelligence is built. It doesn't matter who does it, there will be no benefits. But there are many benefits to a well-regulated, well-understood, well-controlled AI market. But doing so is hard, but the work has to be done.
Merci. Merci.
Thank you. I am quite concerned after hearing what you have to say. I'm certain that we can have good intentions, and if we work together on this, and if we were to have global rules regarding development, that we would be able to succeed, and it would be advantageous to everyone together. But the efforts need to be global. Is that correct?
I will tend to say so. At least for the mitigation of ASI, it should be done worldwide. If anyone does it, we all suffer from it. We live in a very interconnected world. If we have a super intelligent system that can overthrow governments, that can play geopolitics and, war better than any human, if anyone builds it, we're in deep trouble.
OK.
So,
Merci, Madame Lapointe. Monsieur Thériault pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Ms. Lapointe. Monsieur Thériault, you have 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. I apologize for my voice. I have a bit of a cold, and that's why I'm not in the room. Thank you very much to the witnesses for their opening remarks. I would like to ask a more technical question. Some would say that such talk is alarmist, that AI is not coming overnight, that we haven't made it to a super intelligent AI, and we have time to tackle it. You can tell me whether or not you agree with the statement, but there seems to be trends indicating the complete opposite. Their abilities are increasing significantly, and AI models are helping them to increase their intelligence significantly with available data. Do you agree that we don't have as much time as we would think?
really think so. I think another way to think about it is that 15 years ago, no one predicted where the capabilities of our artificial intelligence would be now. So this is the big thing that has happened. This is a big reason why experts are warning about the extinction risks, is that very, very few people, almost no one in AI, expected that we would have models as powerful, as the GPT suite of models from several companies are. Put simply, when I was a teenager, no one expected that we'll have models that can talk to people. This was inconceivable. So yes, things are accelerating faster and faster.
Les États ont comme
Governments seem to be fascinated with applications that would increase efficiency and seem to be focused on a race to having applications that increase efficiencies. And we'll see later whether or not there are efficiencies to be gained. What I've understood from what you've said is that AI is in development and it can't be left to its own devices, but we need to focus on the how. In Canada, there's a bill that died on the order paper, C-27, that proposed the creation of a commissioner to AI and data, and that position would have allowed us to focus on economic development and AI. The current government created a minister of AI, and we'd like to hear from that person eventually. Last June, he made a speech stating that he would focus on looking at the economic advantages of this technology instead of focusing on regulation. What do you think of such a comment?
I think there are obviously many reasons to focus on the positives rather than the negatives. It is frankly more profitable and it's more fun, to say it rather simply. But it is also important that we are facing a poly crisis. in many, many areas across the globe. I am less familiar with Canada than I am than, for example, the UK, where I currently live, or my native Germany, or native America. But we are facing many, many challenges, and often there is a seduction towards thinking of technological solutions. And often technology is a very powerful solution, is a powerful way to help address these problems. And I believe AI can be helpful for many of these problems. But it is also important to be skeptical. There was a world when nuclear power was first being developed where it was thought as a solution to everything. They wanted to make nuclear-powered aircraft, for example, that would just spew radiation as they flew. They wanted to use nuclear weapons for mining applications. I think the Russians actually tried that one, and many such things. And this is not to say that nuclear power is not an incredibly useful and powerful technology. I think nuclear power plants are some of the most effective ways to make energy. But the reason our nuclear power plants are so safe and good and useful is because of good regulation. And this took decades of hard work. This took many, many experts' invention of whole new forms of safety engineering to be able to reap the benefits. I think we're seeing a similar thing here. If we just try to reap the benefits without actually the correct amount of safety engineering that is necessary, we will see the same thing that we've seen with social media repeat, and we will not see the AI equivalent of safe, economically productive nuclear reactors.
Il reste juste 15 secondes,
You
Monsieur.
have 15 seconds left, Mr. Thériault. 15 seconds? All right. I'll wait then. Thank you.
Based on your experience with malicious AI uses such as deepfakes, cyber attacks, and autonomous exploitation tools, what safeguards or regulatory measures should we be examining to protect Canadians? And what examples can you point to of where those are successfully being implemented, either at a corporate level, a national or subnational level? And I'll give both gentlemen a crack at the question if they'd like.
Cool. I will start then. I think there are basically two separate categories of risks. I think there are the risks that come from superintelligence and more generally from systems that cannot be controlled. For these risks, I recommend basically regulating the development of such systems. The problem of such systems is that once they're developed, we cannot control them. We cannot put the genie back into the bottle. So this is one type of regulation that is quite important. This is why we put a strong emphasis on international agreements and this type of regulation. The other one is for the, let's say, more prosaic risks of current systems. Future systems are not yet super intelligent, which means that if there is a problem, we can put the genie back into the bottle. Here, it's more at the application level. And when I say the application level, I mean more on the AI companies. You want to regulate the bottlenecks. And so here it will be, I think, beneficial to put stringent regulations on the dangerous aspects of AI and putting strong liability regimes such that if the systems that they build, are used for nefarious purposes, they are also liable for it. So I would separate those two. One, the development part of regulation for super intelligent AI, and the other one, the applications for current systems and near future systems.
Just to pick up on where my colleague just spoke, I think it's very important that there is a play that is very, very often attempted by these actors where they attempt to blame the users for misuse of their tools at every possible opportunity. In general liability law, the best practice is to put liability on the part of the supply chain that is best suited to addressing the harm. Obviously, the part that is best suited to addressing the harm are these massive corporations with the best technical talent in the world, massive platform leverage, and so on, rather than on the user. So I think I would push against user liability as the way to address these risks and much more on developer or deployer liability.
To follow up on the point with respect to regulation of development. So if we gatekeep the advancement or development here and we have treaties with many other countries, but say, for example, Russia and China, or Russia or China, don't participate in the treaty, wouldn't we find ourselves in a situation where our adversaries are proceeding with development in an AI arms race while we just watch and hope that things don't get out of hand when, based on the context that you provided in your opening statements, we know that it almost certainly will, but we may not have developed tools that would allow us to defend against it, because would I be correct in saying that we can also use models to defend us against rogue states, or rogue states and the models that they would develop and deploy to our detriment?
So there are basically two regimes. There's the superintelligent regime, and there's before that. In the superintelligent regime, everyone loses. If Russia builds superintelligent AI systems, everyone loses. They cannot control it. Same thing for China, same thing for the US, same thing for any country. So this is in the superintelligent regime. It's only the superintelligent AI systems that basically have any agency left. Then there's the pre-superintelligent regime, where there is an actual race. Because until superintelligence, when you can still steer your systems, you stand to gain a lot of benefits from developing stronger systems. This is why international agreements are important. And indeed, if we fail to build those international agreements and to reach those international agreements, things go bad. The same is true for biotechnology. The same is true for any type of dangerous weapons, for nuclear weapons, and so on and so forth. This is why we believe that such international agreements are critical. Okay. Else you get into the regime where you get to the superintelligent regime and things go bad.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Barrett. Questions? Monsieur Sarré pour 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Mr. Sarré, you have 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the two witnesses that we have with us today. You shared very important information with us today. It is slightly alarming, and I agree with the facts that you shared on risks. I agree with the significance and the impact that ASI could play. Where our opinions diverge regards halting. And when we use that and halting technology, and for the benefit of Canadians who are listening to us, are we talking about halting the development of technology or halting its use? And you explained well that technology and persuasive technology already exists. Canadians use this technology and these systems already. Would you ask us to halt the use of these systems, knowing that these systems are mostly developed outside of Canada, or should we halt internal development? Because you struck a parallel between the nuclear race, but halting that had a geographic impact, but that wouldn't be the case with neural networks and AI that can be used throughout the world. And so I would like for you to speak to that difference in opinion that we have.
Yes, this is very excellent questions. And this is, in fact, a very difficult thing. The non-geolocality of digital technologies presents novel, unprecedented risks of proliferation and difficulty of control. With nuclear weapons, for example, we had the luck, in a sense, that uranium ore is quite bulky and centrifuges are quite hard to build and are quite visible from space if you do it right. We have some of these benefits when it comes to AI systems, such as data centers. Others, such as the open sourcing of many such systems, present novel difficulties. This is why we've put such emphasis on the regulation of the development. if a superintelligent system was made, it would be probably a computer file that can probably never be deleted. It would be something that would spread. We might not even know what we're even dealing with when it is first developed. It is quite likely that the first superintelligent system, we don't even know that it is superintelligent until it's too late. Which is already the case right now, that many of our AI systems have capabilities that we don't know at the time of development. We only discover much later that our systems were capable of things we didn't know. So this is a novel regime. This is not something that we have dealt with very well historically. Even historically, things such as export controls on software have not been very successful or have been very, very tricky to enforce. What I think is very important to say is that, again, we do not think that all AI should be halted or that all AI applications should be halted or not used by users. I'm sure my colleague would agree with me that we enjoy very much many AI applications on the market today. What we want is to gain the benefits of the kind of AI we have right now and continuing forward into more powerful applications.
Le temps est un peu limité. J'aimerais juste
My
vous
time is a little limited, so I do have a second question that I would like to ask you. You stated it clearly, and I hope that there will be an international agreement, but I'm not very positive because I'm seeing the race by these different companies for quantum and AI, and I think that I'm not as optimistic as I should be. But I would like to talk about Canada's strategy. We've heard over 11,000 contributions, and how can we encourage Canadians to participate more actively? I think that Canadians need to be educated, but how can we ensure that this becomes a permanent pillar in creating policies regarding AI?
We believe that awareness and education are extremely important at Control AI. It's about half of what we do. So first, education. And second one, putting people in the decision of deploying systems. A lot of people are against the development of super intelligent AI systems, and whatever can put them in the loop and have a say, we believe is good.
So much. Merci, Monsieur Sarret. Monsieur Thériault.
Thank you, Monsieur Sarret. Monsieur Thériault, you have 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair. Machine Intelligence Research Institute, and they testified last week, told us, and I quote, that stopping research is not possible globally, and so that's why they're focusing on a way to interrupt AI. They had proposed a solution in a document that they shared with us, implementing the technical, legal, and institutional measures necessary in order to restrict development and deployment of dangerous AI internationally, which we would call a stop button, which would allow us to coordinate a reaction globally. What do you think of such a proposal?
We believe generally that there is a lot of value in what is often called stop button proposals, mostly not from a technical perspective, but from a social political factor. As an example, I have in the past asked someone who worked at a large tech company whether, if they wanted to, they could shut down all of their servers. And he said no, because he didn't know where all of them were. There was no single person in this entire company who knew where all their servers were and what software was running on them. Creating legislation, I am not familiar, unfortunately, with this specific proposal that you mentioned. There is a lot of value in this, but I would like to also say that it sounds to me the proposal does also push against the development. We cannot rely on waiting and seeing until we see a super intelligent system, because by the time we see one, it's already too late. It's quite likely that the first super intelligent system that gets built, we will not even recognize as being that until quite a bit later, and that will be far too late. So it's very important, which is why the repeated emphasis on precursors is to make sure that such systems never get developed in the first place. And to do this, we also already need to be in the loop before such systems are built.
Vous parlez des précurseurs.
You talked about precursors. You've mentioned them a few times. How can we limit these precursors?
I'll take this one. There are many different types of precursors. Some are hardware, like data centers or the way to build GPU in the supply chain and things like this. Some are more software, so just the type of AI system that has gotten built and the type of scaffolding that you have on top of them. A deep thing that is quite important to understand is that this is a moving target. As time passes, it gets easier and easier to build super intelligent systems, and more things, get in the category of precursors. This is also why we believe that there is an urgency that we should tackle this as soon as possible. Right now, we can get away with just, for instance, preventing research programs that aim at building super intelligent systems. We should also focus on limiting open sourcing of models, because once it's there, you cannot take it back. And the same thing for data centers. For every data center, there should be stop button, kill switches. There should be clear regimes for what can be done with them, and so on and so forth. So this is the type of regulation that we should have on precursors. Fundamentally, it is a moving target. As the technology changes, as the way the technology is built changes, and so on and so forth, the target itself changes. The precursors 15 years ago would have been very different from now, and it would have been much simpler to tackle the problem 15 years ago. So, yeah.
Merci.
Thank you. How much time do I have left, Chair, to see whether or not I have enough time for my next question? 35 seconds. So a bit of time. Maybe a bit more. I'll go for it, and perhaps you can answer in another round. One of the ethical aspects is what I find concerning, and it's the energy use for these data centers. There are two very polluting plants for carbon, and they will continue to be operated in order to meet the needs, the significant data needs for Amazon, for example, in order to compete with other giants like Google. I find this very concerning. We're developing AI for the benefit of rich countries, but it's to the detriment of people's health in developing countries. I need a quick response, please.
D'abord de réponse.
Just a start of an answer, even.
More general aspect of the fact that AI is developed without much concerns for people, and that people are not put in the loop. That's mostly how we see it.
Merci. Thank you. Mr. Mantle, 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for appearing and providing their valuable testimony. Picking up on the comment from my Bloc colleague about the protection of people, I want to focus in on priorities for a moment, and the government's current priorities with respect to artificial intelligence. You may be aware that the government is currently reviewing its AI strategy, but the existing AI strategy, the Pan-Canadian Artificial Intelligence Strategy, lists 3 priorities. The first priority is commercialization, so making money off AI. The second is standards or protections in that area. And the third is talent and research. Do you think that those priorities are in the proper order?
I think it wouldn't be a surprise that we would disagree, that these are the most important priorities. While, of course, again, I think both of us are technologists by background. We love technology. We got into this to do technology to make the world a better place. this technology is dual use. It is power, and it is very important to use it correctly when we're dealing with unprecedented technologies of this kind of power. So to get a good outcome, I think the most important thing is to get this right, to not repeat the mistakes of social media, to not let technology exist for technology's sake, but for technology to exist to benefit people. And this is not what technology will do by default. We have to make it do that. So we think this should likely be the top priority, and in sense of most acute risk, we believe superintelligence to be the most pressing, personally.
I would tend to agree and may add something. I think it was in July of this year that YouTube Shorts reached 200 billion views per day. And there was an entire article from YouTube about this that was extremely happy about the fact that it got 200 billion views per day. We think that a lot of people building AI systems are in this paradigm. We know many technical employees at those AI companies, and it's just extremely fun to watch loss go down and results on benchmarks getting higher. It's good in itself to just get more technology, to just get more. It's fun, it's great to see, and you don't need to think much. So I will echo what Connor said, and I do believe that it should be the biggest priority when developing technology to ensure that it benefits people, humanity, and
So if I'm understanding your testimony, you would suggest that the priorities should be reversed and that standards and that sort of protection should come before commercialization in the government strategy. Is that correct?
I think that benefiting humanity can be done through many ways. So in the context of superintelligence, we believe that it's through regulation and protection, but for other things, it's by using the technology in good ways and using it in a way that benefits people. Personally, I'm quite hopeful about AI in the context of education. I think different people have different priorities, but if one tries to use AI for good, I believe a lot can be done with it. It's a very powerful technology.
Great. Canada has just recently, in this government, created a new minister position, Minister of AI. And in one of his first speeches after becoming Minister of AI, Mr. Solomon said Canada, quote, would move away from over-indexing on warnings and regulation, end quote, to make sure that the economy benefits from AI. Could I get your reaction to that approach?
My general opinion is that yes, I think you can get a lot of economic benefit by neglecting human flourishing. This is something that we've seen historically many, many times. There are many ways to pump a stock market at the expense of people. For example, deregulating Ponzi schemes is very profitable in the short term. And then eventually the bill comes. I think we're seeing a similar thing here, is building a long-term responsible stewardship of building a good society and that uses technology effectively. Again, I think that benefiting mankind also means using AI, but using it correctly and for the benefit of mankind. And this is harder and in the short term less profitable.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mantle. Mr. Lee, I'm just going to get you to move that microphone down a little bit. It's coming in a little hollow right now, but we want to make sure that the interpreters are understanding what you're saying. Ms. Church, 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and welcome to both of our witnesses. I guess my question maybe first to Mr. Alfor would be, what experience do you have dealing with the Canadian Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute, the CAISI, that was launched November 2024? Do you have any experience dealing with them directly?
I do not have much experience dealing with them directly, aside from interacting with a few people who I think were there when I talked to them.
Would either of you have comment in terms of how you think that their mandate and their work is shaping up? I guess I would just note for the committee that the CAISI was developed by the Government of Canada in part to examine the risks posed by advanced AI systems to help develop tools and guidelines to manage those risks. and it also works collaboratively internationally in a way to try to develop protocols for AI safety. So it's only a year old at this stage, but I was just wondering if either of you have any guidance for us as a committee as to the reach of its mandate or how you think its work could be enhanced going forward.
As far as I understand, right now the KC is observatory. It does not regulate, it does not constrain. I would not say if it's the role of KC specifically to regulate and constrain. This is a political call that is, I think, outside of my purview. But I do think that someone should have this authority. We already got the warnings 2 years ago from the experts about extinction risks. We already know that several leading AI corporations are racing specifically for superintelligence. I think now time is for action. Whether this should be done through Casey, through the Minister for AI, or through another entity, I think is beyond my pay grade. But I do believe it should be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the tools in the toolbox to help develop the actual framework that then Parliament would need to legislate if we were going down that route. But it's interesting because I think that we're attuned to the risks, but even as you would acknowledge, it's finding the means to regulate and understand AI in its various forms that I think is going to pose a challenge. Mr. Leahy, do you have any wisdom for us in terms of how we could grow the mandate or the work of Casey to support us in developing framework and security protocols to deal with this?
I have not had personal experience with Casey. I have not talked to them. I have talked to many people around Joshua Bengio at Mila and his group, who is one of the godfathers of AI. So this is the people I have the most experience with here. Generally, I would say it is very important to have some amount of technical capability that can give nonpartisan advice to governments. I think this is a very important function. I think it's also very important to understand that a lot of these institutions, through, in a sense, no fault of their own, often get corrupted by business interests. Many of these people who work at these companies or at these institutions have very lucrative offers from these kind of companies and often have their identity tied to technology being good. While on the other hand, there are many people whose identity is tied to technology being not good. And we don't want, in a sense, either of this. What we want is a balanced understanding of how can we mitigate the risks that are truly unacceptable while also benefiting from the ones that we can manage. I think this is a hard tightrope to balance, but I think it's important to make this the clear mandate, that this is the mandate.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And I think it's helpful that the Canadian AI institutes, including Mila, are involved with Casey as well, I think, to provide some of that balanced input. Let me take you in a different direction. What type of counter protocols would you suggest? So you've mentioned the geopolitical risks that we face by other foreign actors, and I'm curious if you have any guidance for us in terms of thinking of the either the cybersecurity reaction or protocols we should put in place to protect our critical infrastructure and systems, or any other counter protocols you might suggest we look at as a government.
I would need a rather quick response to the question, please.
I tend to think that countries should now seriously think about national firewalls to prevent outside actions. I think there has been a lot of taboo about them in the past, and I think that if a country is to ensure its cyber security and its security in its cyber sphere, it should strongly consider this in general. That's my personal opinion, not that of Control AI, but to your question, I think it's the most direct one.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Church. Mr. Leahy and Mr. Alfour, I want to thank you for appearing before the committee this morning. We are going to suspend for a few minutes while we get into our second hour. The meeting is suspended. The meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome our second witness, our second hour witness from INQ Law. We've got Carol Piovesan, who is the managing partner. Unfortunately, we were to have another witness, but the witness could not be here. So it's the Carol Show for this second hour. And Carol, you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the committee. My name is Carol Piovesan. I am a managing partner at Inc. Law, where I advise clients on privacy, cybersecurity, data governance, and AI risk management. I've had the privilege of contributing to AI policy discussions nationally and internationally, including through the OECD AI Policy Observatory. I've previously appeared before this committee as well as the INDU committee. And I am an adjunct professor at the University of Toronto Faculty of Law, where I teach on AI regulation, as well as the co-author of the book, Leading Legal Disruption, Artificial Intelligence and a Toolkit for Lawyers and the Law. The opinions I present today are my own personal opinions and do not reflect those of my law firm. To understand how we should govern AI, we should go back to first principles and ask, what is AI trying to achieve? So in 1950, Alan Turing posed what he called the imitation game, a test to determine whether machines could think, meaning that he believed one day machines could play games, remember, observe results of their own behaviors, learn from rewards and punishments, and even deliberately introduce mistakes into their working. Today, some of the leading AI researchers around the world are divided on where the trajectory of AI is taking us. Award-winning Canadian researchers such as Yoshua Bengio and Geoffrey Hinton, both pioneers of deep learning, warn that we may soon have computers that exceed human intelligence with profound implications for safety and control. Indeed, the existential threat we all hear about. Others, such as Jan LeCun, another pioneer, advances an argument that is more aligned with artificial machine intelligence, which is best understood as augmenting human intelligence rather than replacing it. And the purpose for pursuing AI and the achievements towards achieving those pursuits matter in how we think about governance. If a tool is to be used to extend human capabilities, we govern its use. If AI is an autonomous system capable of independent reasoning, we regulate its development and deployment with a different level of vigilance. Canada's approach must account for both. Around the world, we are seeing at least 3 distinct models of governance being presented for AI. Under the Trump administration, we are seeing a deregulatory approach in the United States with an emphasis on competitiveness over comprehensive safeguards. The federal approach relies on existing sectoral laws applied through agencies such as the FTC, while actively resisting state-level experimentation in stricter AI rules. The United Kingdom and Singapore take a different approach. There, we are finding a much more tailored sectoral approach to AI regulation. The UK in particular has a principle-based approach, asking existing sector-specific regulators to interpret and apply cross-cutting principles such as safety, transparency, fairness, contestability within their domains. The UK considers that this approach offers critical adaptability that keeps pace with rapid technological change, though there are certain developments suggest binding measures for the most powerful AI models may be forthcoming. And Singapore has certainly adopted a much more soft law voluntary framework. There is no specific AI regulation. However, Singapore's approach through consensus building between government, industry, and citizens, and through instruments such as the Model AI Governance Framework and the AI Verify Testing Toolkit, have proven with some success in building a sense of trust and a common approach to AI development. Singapore's investment in national AI literacy and its consultative and iterative approach to governance is a model from which Canada can draw inspiration. And then we see the third model, which is far more prescriptive. And that model is found in the EU AI Act that I know this committee has already heard about. And therein lies an act that is much more tailored, horizontal, and focused on the prescriptive life cycle of AI development, deployment across the supply chain. Canada's approach should be tailored to our context, regulating frontier AI systems, not the same as regulating Copilot in the use of a law firm or a chatbot on a service line. The UK's context-specific approach recognizes this. Canada is more like the UK and Singapore than the United States or Europe. We value proportionate regulation that protects rights while enabling innovation. And so I'll close on my three-point call to action. The first is to continue building a regulatory guidance approach for safe AI. Our AI Safety Institute must be operating at full force, demonstrating that Canada takes the safety of these systems seriously. Continuing to target an iterative standards guidance and directives-based approach to artificial intelligence with an emphasis on real-world testing for high-risk AI contexts. Lab benchmarks and offline evaluations only show models perform on static tests, but not how they actually interact in real-world use. Second, and very importantly, we need to improve diversity in representation and perspectives in policy and throughout the development, evaluation, deployment process. Individual perspectives matter, and they are highly unrepresented throughout the AI ecosystem. Third is to conduct an environmental scan to better understand on a sectoral basis where our laws may have gaps to account for AI or where AI is already accounted for, such that we have the coverage we need for the everyday use of AI in business. Targeting soft and hard law at home in a tailored manner, enabling Canada to play to its trusted global position to ensure robust and harmonized standards, certifications, and guidance for responsible AI should be our path forward. Thank you, and I welcome the committee's questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Piovesan. I know that there is a fourth, fifth, and sixth component to your recommendations, and perhaps the committee members, I've seen your opening remarks, perhaps the committee members can guide you with that in their line of questioning. Mr. Barrett, you have 6 minutes. Go ahead, please.
I'd like to pick up on just one of the points that you mentioned in your opening, and it was about the regulation of frontier AI systems. How would in doing that, how would Canada defend against rogue nations from developing and deploying AI weapons, and what international coordination would be required to make those safeguards in the development of frontier AI systems effective?
Every nation has an advantage, has a sort of draw to protect its own systems as much as possible. And Canada has been working internationally since 2019 through the Global Partnership on AI, through the OECD, through the G8 and G7, and through other international mechanisms, including now the International AI Safety Institutes. We've been working quite diligently to establish more of commonality in how we are approaching AI and the regulation or the protection of AI around the world, of frontier AI around the world. So where we've got rogue nations that may be developing certain AI systems that are offensive to our own principles, it's really important to understand that Canada is already embedded in these international committees where we are playing a key role in establishing what the norms ought to look like, but also what the mechanisms to enforce those norms. We're not going to be able to do it alone at all. We do have to find who our friends are and where we have commonality in approach and in values. And just through that, establish the mechanisms that we need to defend those values and that approach.
I wanted to ask you about the long-term trajectory of superintelligent AI and worst-case scenarios that would follow if there weren't adequate safeguards that had been put in place that stopped this from getting away from us as a species. But first, could you tell me what you think, what terms we're talking in? Like, could you qualify, in your opinion, are we talking long term? Are we talking 10 years? Are we talking 5 years? What do you think?
I'm obviously not a technologist, but I will tell you, but I've sat around circles to hear what some of the technologists are saying. So what I am hearing, and I have no reason to disbelieve them, what I am hearing is that we are decades away or less. So we're no longer talking about, and I'll say I remember sitting in a class with Dr. Hinton years ago where he was suggesting that artificial general intelligence was hundreds of years away. And then in 2023, he shifted that approach to saying we're much closer than we ever thought. The pace of technological development is happening at an exponential level. So I think we are, by all accounts, from what I am hearing, with no reason to disbelieve, we are much closer to superintelligent computers than we probably thought we would be just a few years ago.
And there's lots of it's easy to fall down it's easy for one to fall down the dystopian hole about mind hole about what that looks like. What do you hear? What is discussed? What are the outcomes that we're looking to avoid? And then so I've got just over 2 minutes left. What are the outcomes we're looking to avoid, and how can we, as a parliament, play a role in preventing that from happening?
We're looking to avoid superintelligent computers that are superior to us in a way that is harmful to us. So Dr. Hinton spoke about embedding maternal instincts into superintelligent computers so that they would be more empathetic and protective. Parliament can play a role in ensuring that there is a regular tracking of the development and sort of inputs into the development of those frontier models and how they are implemented within Canadian society with a view to shaping what the values ought to look like that would be encoded in these systems. So Parliament can play a role in ensuring that we are identifying the values that we want these systems ultimately to be embedded with, and then providing a process through which those values can in fact be embedded in those systems and we could see those outputs.
That's good. 25 seconds. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. Monsieur Sarret pour 6 minutes.
Mr. Sarret, you have 6 minutes.
Interpretation is on. Allez, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, et j'apprécie et je.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank our witness for her opening remarks and the information that she gave us. I would like to start with comments that I made to the two previous witnesses regarding what we can control. Will we be focusing on developing this super intelligence, or should we work on the use of AI itself? Most systems that are used by Canadians are not actually being developed in Canada.
I think that's a very fair point, that the systems aren't necessarily developed here. But we do have, first of all, through international coordination, we have a mechanism through which to inform what those values and those standards ought to look like. And we do have precedent for this in a number of different respects, some of which you heard about with the earlier witnesses. So we do have some role to play in being clear about what embedding those good values look like and what it means to develop, intelligent computers that are aligned to what we believe, the role we believe they should play in society. And I will give you the example of the G7 back in 2018, where our government, and actually all the governments of the G7, were talking very much about the values in the context of AI and how we were going to advance standards, policies, and practices that would protect those values. And from there, you saw a movement into the Global Partnership on AI. You saw the coordination through the United Nations on AI with a view to trying to create more of a harmonization in approach. Cut to the most recent G7, where the emphasis was primarily on adoption, because we're now at a stage where we can see the real world uses of AI, and we are much more prone to and excited about, in a lot of ways, which is a good thing, the adoption of these technologies. In this current context, as we are starting to become much more familiar with the technology, understand its opportunities and use, and we cannot lose sight of the opportunities. We have to be mindful of the risks, but we cannot lose sight of the opportunities. We have a role to play then in ensuring the safe use where there is actual risk. So what I don't want to do is establish a system that applies the same kinds of controls for all uses. We have to be targeted.
Exactement. Puis vous avez dit d'être vraiment conscient des risques.
Absolutely. And being aware of the risks is important. I think that many governments are aware of risks, as you mentioned with the G7, and you talked about the American approach that is more competitive, and that of the UK, which is based on ethics and accountability. What approach should we focus on at the Canadian government? And I do have another question, if you can be brief in your response.
I'm more inspired by the UK and Singapore approaches than I am by the EU or the US.
Et cette approche-là, parce qu'avant d'aller à la dernière question, cette approche...
This leads me to my last question. Could this approach get us to the goals that we're looking for without governments being aligned? This super intelligent AI is going to continue being developed.
Necessarily stop the development of AGI, but it does embed the more of a mature approach to how we regulate it in today.
Merci beaucoup. Puis ma dernière question, ça concerne...
Thank you very much. And my last question has to do with C27, and you participated in that. And what would be the way to go regarding C27? What are the lessons learned with Bill C27?
Talking about Part 3 of C27, which is the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, the best lesson to learn from that is the overarching accountability framework that was put in place that required a turning of the mind to the context of the use of AI, determining its potential impact level, and then establishing a diligence process, soup to nuts, in response to that level of risk.
J'aimerais vous entendre, je sais que j'aimerais bien...
I would love to read your book. I haven't read it yet, but I think that it will be something that I'll read over the holidays. Can you share your position regarding data sovereignty in Canada?
It's a complex question in a short period. I understand and appreciate the approach of digital sovereignty. I think there is a lot that is extremely important with digital sovereignty. I also recognize it's a long-term investment.
Grand merci.
Merci.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sahi. Mr. Thériault, you have 6 minutes. The floor is yours. Thank you very much, Chair. Welcome. In June 2025, Professor Banjo, who works at Milan, the Quebec Institute on AI, launched a new organization, a research organization on AI security called Rule Zero in order to prioritize security over commercial imperatives. In your view, what are the major risks posed by AI? Earlier you mentioned that we need to look at the goals of AI, the goals of its use, because we are looking at potential impacts, and that will be my first question.
We have to acknowledge the cybersecurity risks of artificial intelligence and whether we're ready as a country to defend against those risks. We also absolutely have to recognize the human rights and social development related concerns of artificial intelligence and walk in with our eyes wide open as businesses in our country start to adopt AI with much more interest.
Parlant de
Speaking of human rights, the Montreal Declaration states that ASI needs to be trained in order to not reproduce or recreate discrimination based on social, sexual, ethnic, or cultural or religious differences. Developing ASI should contribute to eliminate unfair distinctions between different people. With C27, do we truly factor in biases caused by AI in the implementation of policies? And how should the government integrate this concern further?
A job to do in establishing discussions between different legal regimes, such as the human rights regime, and its place in with artificial intelligence, meaning that in the application of human rights law and in the application of our charter, for instance, that we understand the connection and the role that AI places in each of those sections. So there are absolutely concerns around the use of AI producing fair outputs. What we need to start to understand is, what does fair mean? What is the standard? How do we judge it? And then how can we demonstrate that we are living up to these standards? And that is critical. In addition, I do want to highlight one of the points that I made earlier. The diversity of perspectives around the table matters. You need to hear from different people, from different perspectives. It really matters, and it will shape the way we approach AI policy and law.
Merci. Merci.
Thank you. Still speaking about Mr. Banjo, are there any safeguards that could be implemented in order to prevent some of the common risks that you're seeing with AI? You made a series of recommendations earlier, but I would like for you to speak to us a bit more about this and perhaps carry on your recommendations.
Absolutely. There are a number of recommendations to ensure that that AI is used more, in a safer manner. Many of the recommendations I have in my written submissions, I tried to consolidate just for expediency. The standards that we have in place that we need to augment. So there are a number of standards through the International Standards Organization. The Standards Council of Canada is working on a body of research to support Canadian standards in AI. And then the application of those standards matter. So when we look at those ISO standards, we are looking at a governance standard for how you operationalize responsible AI within the use of that system, or it's the use of AI in a particular context, which means it is not technical, it is governance oriented. And having increasing our understanding through a national literacy program, through more sectoral guidance, through more industry collaboration, and through the greater perspectives being brought to the table, we can start to have very actionable plans around how we will operationalize these standards and what good looks like to achieve in each of these standards.
Okay.
Est-ce que
Monsieur Thériault.
Mr. Thériault, I apologize. Your 6 minutes are up. Apologies. I know it goes very quickly. Mr. Hardy, you have 5 minutes. Thank you for being with us today. The goal of AI for many businesses is to replace humans in a lot of the work that needs to be done. We're seeing studies that are showing that youth from 22 to 25 years old are in jobs that can be easily replaced by AI, and they have seen a 13% decrease because they are not, or rather they cannot access certain jobs. So we're talking about a bit of an online immigration in a way. People with postdocs in AI, they're working 24/7, and they can work for less than minimum wage. And ethics and innovation is at the heart of everything. And do you believe that we should legislate to ensure that businesses are not hiring AI instead of hiring real people?
I think you can legislate that businesses aren't hiring AI instead of real people, but let me offer a different perspective. We work with clients all the time to operationalize their AI governance programs. And I always ask them, when we're going through the use case identification, I always ask them 3 questions. Number 1, what is the work you don't want to do because it's boring and mundane? Number 2, how much time do you spend on each of those tasks? And then number 3, what would you be doing if you weren't doing those tasks? And 100% of the time, I am told I would be more proactive, I would be able to serve my mandate better, I would be able to contribute more value to my organization. My point is this. Number 1, AI as a tool is going to be used within our businesses, and we can't and shouldn't stop that use. Number 2, we will have to reorient the job market. I have kids. I am distinctly aware of where they're headed and where there may be vulnerabilities in some of their job choices. So I understand that there will be shifts in the way we sort of structure labor and within Canada, but we have to make that adjustment. And instead of resisting it, we have to support reskilling and upskilling. And this is something we've been talking about as a country for many, many years. The last point is around literacy and allowing people to understand how this tool is to be used and enabling them to better identify and shape their own career paths, recognizing the profound transformational impact of artificial intelligence.
Alors, vous pensez pas qu'à un certain point...
Do you not believe, and I do understand what you're saying, if I wasn't doing the boring tasks, I would be doing something more interesting. But do you not believe that at a certain point, AI could replace a lot of the work here in our country? Should we not act to ensure that people who are losing their jobs don't require support can we legislate so that businesses don't focus too much on AI instead of hiring people?
I take your question in two parts. So the first is there something we should be doing to support this transitional period as people might be looking for new opportunities because of displacement caused by AI? The second is there something that we should be doing to prevent companies from using AI instead of people? On the second point, I don't think that we should be inhibiting companies from adapting to the use of AI. I don't think that's the approach. It's certainly outside the sort of scope of my practice, so that's very much a personal opinion, but I don't think that's the right approach. On the first part, I agree with you. We should be continuously monitoring and investigating how we can better support our workers as we go through a transformation on a step-by-step basis.
J'aurais une autre question qui est peut-être
I
dans
have
un...
another question that is a little bit different. What can we do in Canada? In the private sector, you need to lead by example. And so what can we do in government to ensure that we lead by example and have other countries try to imitate us? Could we be more ethical? Could we have a more narrow development regarding the use of AI in specific fields? What could we do here?
I appreciate that question. We can lead in two ways. We can adopt the technology, and we can do so with the Made in Canada responsible AI brand that we have been developing for a very long time, and we should sell that to the world.
Okay, thank you. Merci, Monsieur Hardy. Mr. Saini for...
Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Carol, for coming. I am very alarmed with the two witnesses who came before you, to the extent that humanity may be at risk of... What can we do? I mean, United States, China, India, and G7 countries can develop all those things. That may be a danger to the humanity, but there are a lot of other world that don't have those knowledge or the facilities. What can we do to help those, or how can we protect the humanity from the uncontrollable use of this weapon?
I think we have been here before, and I believe, I didn't hear all of the testimony of the two prior witnesses, but I believe they did talk about this in the context of nuclear cooperation. I believe that was the case. And we are going to rely on those processes again, where we are going to have to find our friends. We will establish the mechanisms with our friends to establish...
Excuse me, Carol, I'm sorry. Something got hollow. I don't know whether it was the connection that came out of the microphone. Maybe you can just plug it back in if you don't mind, because it got really hollow quickly in the room here. The sound did. Can you just give me a test? I've stopped your time, Mr. Saini, just so you know. And I'm going to give her an opportunity to respond to the question in its entirety. But can you just give me a test, please?
Sure. Is this better?
Much better. Much better.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to restart your response, and then once you're done, I'll start the clock again, okay?
Wonderful. So as I was saying, I think we have been here before. I think we will have to find who our friends are and establish the mechanisms to embed the right types of values and certification mechanisms, evaluation mechanisms, deployment safeguards that will need to be put in place to do what we can to prevent rogue countries from investing in and ultimately succeeding with super intelligent computers that are harmful to humanity. And I think that's going to be our best path forward.
My concern is with the atomic energy, it was used and it did a lot of harm before we realized that this is a dangerous Do we have any organization, United Nations or anybody, who can regulate these things and tell these rude countries that this is enough and we don't want to carry on with this?
I don't think we have the right international governance organization set up to protect AI yet. I think we need to invest in that organization or augment an existing organization with a specific view to supporting the safe deployment of AI. And we have seen some of that through the International AI Safety Institutes, the organization of safety institutes that consolidate and organize the various national safety institutes. But I don't believe that is their explicit mandate.
In general, how are the Canadian AI companies doing compared to the rest of the world?
We have one large language model that competes on a global scale, and that's through Cohere. Otherwise, our AI companies are, by and large, from what I understand, are relatively small compared to some of the US companies, particularly those that are, I think it's California that has 32 of the 50 top AI companies in the world. So Canada has a long way to go in augmenting and really globalizing our AI companies.
I understand there was some money put in the last budget. Do you think that was enough, or do we need to do more?
A little outside of my scope, but I would say looking at all the reports of the AI bubble and the amount of money that is being poured into US AI companies, we would do very well not only to pour more money into some of our companies and to our approaches to support our companies, but certainly to help our companies go global and to export our technology with rigor.
You mentioned Singapore or UK as the model that our country should follow. Can you give us the reasoning why do you pick those compared to the rest of the world, which are in advance?
Absolutely. The UK's model, principles approach, sectoral focused, not taking regulation off the table entirely, but using an iterative approach to better understand where there are gaps in regulation and where they can better target their regulation to support, if needed, a horizontal law, and if not, support the regulators in providing effective guidance through a consultative approach with industry and with other players, I think is something that aligns very nicely with Canada's approach generally. Singapore is interesting. It has had a number of sandboxes, particularly for Verify AI, that has been effective in testing different trust models. It has invested quite a bit in the National AI Literacy Program. We see a different reaction to AI in countries such as Singapore that are more trusting of the technology, which will lead more to greater adoption, but also a strong focus on economic and competitiveness as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saini, Ms. Piovasan. Mr. Thériault, 5 minutes.
Mr. Thériault, you have 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. AI is a monster being developed. And yes, we can frame it further. Earlier, we talked about the former Bill C-27 that died on the order paper, and that proposed the creation of a commissioner to AI and data. What do you think of that recommendation and the creation of that position? A short response, please.
I think that position can be very useful depending on its mandate and, importantly, how it is resourced.
Merci.
Thank you. AI is an accelerator for information control and power. how can we better control the motivation of developers? The government currently, through its minister, has stated that it would be focusing on economic development and technology instead of regulation. What do you think of that approach? Should we not put as much effort into legislation as we will in promoting economic advantages or benefits?
I interpreted the minister's approach to AI as being, I have this recollection that he said light, tight, and right, which meant we will look to regulate, but it will be in a manner that is tailored and focused. And I think that aligns very well with the UK and Singapore approaches that I am proposing for Canada. I've been involved in the consultations related to the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, and there were significant concerns about establishing a horizontal law that would apply in every context, but without sufficient consultation to determine if that was necessary. I think the approach that I'm proposing to this committee would allow us to balance the economic advantages with those controls that you speak about.
Je m'excuse, Monsieur Thériault.
Apologies, Mr. Thériault. I stopped your time because we're having another issue with the microphone and sound.
Again, if you don't mind. It gets really tingy for some reason and hollow, so just give me another test. Just give me a count, Carol, if you don't mind.
Is that okay? Is that any better?
Much better, yeah.
Okay.
So I have to do this just for the sake of the interpreters. We don't want to cause any other damage. Monsieur Thériault, il reste 2 minutes 10 secondes.
Thériault, you have 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. Thank you. You stated that we want organizations to improve their culture, increase digital literacy, and having a more responsible approach. You talked about mitigating any risks. Certain rules are unclear, but there are the same themes that are repeating themselves. What are the themes that you mentioned?
I think that's right, that the focus is on, for the business use of artificial intelligence, it is an analysis of opportunity and risk. So, and this is one of the themes that I've talked about. We want that, we want our businesses to actually go forward and adopt, and we've seen that on a global scale. Canadian companies are still lagging a little bit in adoption. So we do want them to start iterating and using this technology and becoming much more confident and comfortable with the use of this technology. But we want that within a context of responsible use, meaning a risk-based approach to the use of AI within a context, ensuring appropriate governance controls in place where the use of the technology is hitting up against a higher risk scenario that is to be guided ideally by the sector, potentially by government. We've seen this before through the compendium document that came out with ETHI, but also through a sectoral approach to what risk looks like in a particular environment, and then to the company's own risk-based approach and how it would defend the risk classification that it has put forward.
Mais le rôle principal.
You talked about balance earlier. The government's main role regarding responsible innovation, should they not focus on legislation so that they can ensure that there is a proper implementation before going full speed ahead with the economic development aspect? Because yes, we want to increase efficiencies, but as you mentioned earlier, those can lead to other issues for labor, for example, and that hasn't been assessed?
Please.
Yes, we need a targeted approach, which is why I am suggesting, I'm looking to the UK and Singapore as examples for establishing an appropriate targeted approach to what and how we regulate the use of AI.
Okay, thank you. Merci, Monsieur Thériault. Monsieur Hardy, pour 5 minutes. Commencez, s'il vous plaît.
Mr. Hardy, you have 5 minutes. Thank you very much. If the minister had a single thing to do, if all of his work over the next years had to focus on one thing, what would be the most important decision in order to have a proper development of AI for the coming years?
Augment the emphasis and the mandate of the Safety Institute to make sure that it is properly established to lead and support safe and responsible development and deployment of frontier AI.
Et si on va un petit peu plus clairement, dans le fond, pour vous, c'est quoi?
And what does that safety mean to you? What should be a priority in safety for AI? Because it seems to be a bit broad. Is it to make businesses more responsible in case they develop technology that negatively impacts society? Will they be held responsible? Is it upstream that the structure needs to be rigid? What does that mean for you, safety?
Safety is in the standards that are put in place for developing the technology, how we evaluate that technology, how we clarify what those standards mean, how we establish ongoing monitoring in real time of the use of that technology so that and then how we coordinate and harmonize internationally to ensure that other jurisdictions are following suit. That's where I would place the emphasis.
Tantôt, vous avez dit que le Canada est un leader.
Earlier you said that Canada is a leader and that they should sell their expertise to the world. In what way does Canada stand out, and how is it a leader in AI, and how can we influence the world with our practices here?
What I meant by that is through the sort of responsible AI brand that Canada has put together through its co-founding of the Global Partnership on AI and its active involvement in the ISO AI standards, the 42000 series. In so doing, Canada has had an important role to play in establishing what responsible AI looks like, and I think we should continue to not only sell the sort of Canadian technologies globally, but that we do so by proving that our companies have established certain security safeguards that build trust in Canadian technology.
Je trouve ça intéressant parce que nos deux témoins qui sont venus...
That's very interesting. The two witnesses that we heard from earlier were saying that there are incentives for businesses to be quickly developing AI for financial reasons. And we looked at social media as well and the impact on young people and the mental health of our children. And they said that once things have been developed, businesses say that, oh, it's the users that are improperly using the tool. And so we want our businesses in Canada to have a proper development AI. If we ensure that they are accountable for the negative impacts of AI, do you think that that could be an approach that would stop businesses from developing technologies that would hinder society?
Depends on how we decide to hold a company accountable for something that they may not foresee. So yes, I think that there are certain disincentives you can put in place. There are also incentives that we can put in place by providing the guardrails and showing what good looks like. And I think that might be a really effective approach to support our companies. It's not to say that I'm contrary to anything that is punitive. That's not the point. It's just we have to understand what it is we're regulating and what tools we're using to regulate and enforce that regulation. It has to be tailored.
Ben, je suis assez d'accord avec vous.
I agree. And I do like to make the link between social media and even cigarettes. We were told that they were good for us until we were told that they no longer were. And so measures were put in place to ensure that we weren't promoting the use of cigarettes. I think that social media is benefiting from a bit of a void where our children are a captive audience. And I think that perhaps we should direct AI more to ensure that they're not focusing on profits only for development. Do you agree with that statement?
I do, and I think that there are certain areas where we could be far more active in ensuring transparency and disclosure of AI, particularly where you're looking at the use of chatbots, public-facing chatbots that can be confusing to the user. So there are notices that we could put out to the public to make it much clearer. Again, we need to be targeted and we need to understand the use of the general purpose technology.
Merci, Monsieur Hardy. Madame Lapointe, tu vas partager.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Ms. Lapointe, you'll be sharing your time with Ms. Church for 300 seconds. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being with us. What you've had to say has been very interesting regarding what we need to focus on. Last week, we heard from a witness, Antoine Guilmain. Perhaps you've heard of him. He was saying that he was an expert for the protection of personal data, and he was talking about legislation, and you made reference to this, that there's a lot of legislation here, and that we should focus on the gaps in our legislation before creating new ones. I know that we talked about C27 that died on the order paper, but what would be your recommendations for closing the gaps?
I agree with that. And the recommendation is to conduct more of a comprehensive study, maybe through regulators. So as the UK model, through regulators feeding information back into more of a central body to understand where there are specific gaps in the application of the regulation in the context of artificial intelligence.
Hello, Ms. Piovesan. My question would be about the principle and the values-based approach that you've talked about. How do we ensure, or what are the best practices that you've seen in the UK or Singapore around enforcement and also around transparency? So ensuring that the standards that are in place, the principles that govern the framework, are taken to heart and adopted and adequately enforced, and that the AI systems are transparent to the agencies or the government that is enforcing the principles.
The examples that we've seen primarily in Singapore, also to a lesser extent in the UK, is through this consultative and collaborative process between the market participants, if you will, and the applicable regulator on an iterative and ongoing basis to see how the application of those principles is occurring and where there are deficiencies or challenges in the application of those principles. And as we become more and more aware of where the risks are materializing, we will start to see greater emphasis on regulation with stronger enforcement. It may also be that for those regulators, we will need to augment certain enforcement capabilities so that they're able to exercise whatever jurisdiction they have in the application of their particular sector or body of regulation and AI.
Given the commercial sensitivities that are no doubt present in the sector, how do we ensure that companies are fully transparent and compliant?
I think it will be a challenge to ensure full transparency since many of the AI companies are relying on trade secrets as a mechanism for IP protection. That was embedded in the earlier ETHI model. And to the extent that we do proceed with a body such as the Data and AI Commissioner, that might be a role that we look to augment within that particular office.
Mm-hmm. One of the groups that I've met with has been the Kids Help Phone, who talks about, and I think this is more in the context of some of the chatbots and the public access to AI currently, they've talked about a standard of care existing. Do you think that there is an approach that we could take to ensure that as AI develops, as it is publicly utilized, that we can create some guardrails to create that standard of care, particularly in situations where we're dealing with harms that could be facing children?
I think we will start to see a change in the standard of care that is applicable where whether it applies to children, in the healthcare sector, in the auto sector, we will start to see a changing standard of care that is applicable and conscious of the use of AI in that particular use case.
Got 50 seconds.
Oh.
Yep.
Would you say that there is a sufficient duty of care by companies that are innovating in this area right now under Canadian law?
I think so. Again, it's all very context specific. I think in certain sectors there are existing frameworks that are working to working quite effectively to stem irresponsible investment in artificial intelligence in the use context, meaning that whether they're experimenting internally is one thing, but then how it's ultimately used is another. So I do think in certain contexts there are those effective safeguards. But I also think there are many sectors that are adapting with concern that the safeguards aren't good enough. Look at healthcare, right? We have Health Canada that came out with software as a medical device to better help us better understand how we can be assessing risk of medical devices. That's important, and we need that kind of tailored approach to ensure that when it gets to bedside, use of development of AI in healthcare is one thing. When it gets to bedside, it has to meet certain standards, and we have to know what those standards are.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Church. Ms. Pio-Visan, I want to thank you on behalf of the committee for appearing today. Appreciate your input. Thank you so much. That's all I have. Just a couple of things for the committee. In case you haven't seen it yet, it was distributed among committee members. The AI minister, we heard from his office that he will not be appearing for this study. So that's in the digital binder. And a reminder to committee members that the Ethics Commissioner will be appearing on Monday of next week. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you, everyone. Meeting's adjourned.